Okay then, everybody. The session we're doing this evening is, it's called Answering a Costing Question from a particular paper. In this case, we are doing it from June 2012, right back way when they changed the syllabus, combined the syllabus from being a separate national and international qualification to being a combined international only qualification. So as you can see by the front of the exam paper, that point in time, you're only allowed 2 hours on the exam as well. So bear in mind when we're going through this exam question and how to see how long it takes us, bear in mind you only had 2 hours to answer the whole paper at that point. You now have 2 hours and 15, okay? So you do get that little bit of extra time. The purpose of this now is to get you into real world scenarios of exam papers. I've done them over the course of this week with people as well, whereby I have done a basic introduction to costing. I've done an advanced section of costing. Now I'm going to apply that to an actual exam paper, showing you where the information gets extracted from, showing you how it gets used, showing you how it gets placed onto the page, showing you how the examiners want everything written out so that you maximize the amount of marks that you can get. When I say that, I mean maximize the amount of marks you can get. I'm not saying get everything bang on, spot on, perfect. You know, in an ideal world, we will. But the best we can possibly try and do is maximize as much as we possibly can. So what I'll do is I'll read through the whole of the case study paper, well, a lot of it. Then I'll make sure we're clear on the question. And then I'll show you how I approach it and how I start to extract that information. If you've got any questions as we go through, by all means, feel free to ask any questions that you've got. I'll be doing all the calculations on the calculator to show you what I'm doing. Other than that, let's get going. So as I say, June 2012. This is our scenario then. The background information tells us that you are the Group Transport Director of OCR Limited. OCR Limited is is a holding company that owns 65% of the equity in each of the 5 subsidiary companies or depots, with the staff of each individual company owning the balance of the shares. Each company has one operating centre and uses OCR Limited's operator licences. The subsidiary companies are OCR Derby, OCR Newcastle upon Tyne, Oxford, Swindon, Dover. The subsidiary companies report to OCR Limited directors through their individual general managers, and each has the same staffing structure as shown below. OCR Limited currently holds 4 operator licenses covering the operating centres of the 5 companies. I'm not going to get bogged down in these organisational charts for now because they're not necessary for our question. But it goes on to say, OCR Swindon Limited is contracted by a customer for a service on a twice-weekly basis for a route from Swindon to Milan. The outbound load is empty stillages and the return will be stillages loaded with soft top canopies for a new model of sports car. Very fancy. The stillages are delivered to your depot in Swindon by the customer shuttle service for you to load onto your trailer. OCR Swindon Limited only has one suitable vehicle and trailer combination large enough to carry out this work. A recently purchased new 44-ton tractor unit and 3-axle semi-trailer. I'm highlighting that because it tells me what vehicle is being used on this trip, so I think it might be important to me. The tractor unit used on the journey has a fully equipped 2-man sleeping area with cooking and washing facilities. So the vehicle is able to accommodate 2 drivers. The vehicle will cover approximately 240,000 kilometres per year. Now remember, part of your calculation may have something to do with the fact that it does a certain amount of mileage per year. The distance from Swindon to Dover is 245 kilometres and Calais to Milan is 115 kilometres. So again, if you remember what I've said before, in order to work out running costs, you need to know how far your journey is. The average speed maintained by the vehicle throughout the road part of the journey is 70 kilometers per hour. The journey is carried out by a two-man crew. There we go. The journey is carried out by a two-man crew who have not used any driver's hours concessions since their last weekly rest. There is no allowance of time for driver changeover. This has been taken into account and allowed for in the calculation of the vehicle's average speed. The drivers must start work 30 minutes prior to the vehicle's departure time. The driver of the first leg spends 15 minutes checking the vehicle and 15 minutes checking the load. The second driver reports to the duty manager to collect load documents and paperwork. Vehicles checks are carried out at the start of each working day, and each check takes 15 minutes. The 10 a.m. Dover to Calais ferry is used. The vehicle must arrive at the check-in 30 minutes prior to the vehicle's departure. This 30-minute period is recorded as driving. The sea crossing takes 90 minutes and is regarded as a break. Disembarkation at Calais takes 30 minutes and is also recorded as driving. Crew member 1 completes the embarkation and disembarkation procedures before crew member 2 starts driving. Well, as we're doing a costing question, I'm guessing none of this is going to be particularly relevant to us. The supply room Milan opens for deliveries and collections at 6 a.m. local Italian time. It takes 2 hours to unload and load the vehicle and prepare the documents for the return load. The crew members are required to assist during this time. OCR Swindon Limited uses 4 regular drivers to carry out the route each week from Swindon to Milan. One of the drivers, Abdiessus Kazemi, emigrated from Turkestan to the UK in 2010 and quickly passed all necessary UK tests to gain their full C+E entitlement. He started work for you 2 months after he arrived in the UK. Abdiessus is returning to work after being off for a number of weeks due to an accident at work. You have checked with the DVLA, who've confirmed that he can drive whilst taking his prescribed painkillers. Okay, well, here's what's more interesting to us, I think, our costing information. It tells us specifically about the 3-axle tractor unit and the 3-axle semi-trailer. It said that was the vehicle combination that is used on the journey to Milan. It tells us its vehicle utilisation. It's used over 250 days of the year, both of them. The purchase price of the tractor unit, including its tyres, is £95,000. The semi-trailer is £27,000. Insurance for the tractor, £1,600, £990 for the semi-trailer, etc., etc. Tells us our exchange rate is £1 to €1.20. Cost of the ferry is £385 return. And when calculating standing costs, all days on which the vehicle is used on this route are charged as 4 days. Okay, right. So we're going to attempt to answer the costing question. The costing question on this particular paper reads as: calculate the cost of a 3-day round trip from Swindon to Milan. Present your answer in £sterling and clearly set out all of your standing, running and overall costs. So as it tells me it wants the cost of a 3-day round trip. No, go away. Don't want that. Oh. Let me find my close. Go away. Let me highlight it. There we go. 3-day round trip. So I'm going to highlight that little bit just to make it stand out to me on my exam paper. Just so when I'm working everything out, I can keep referencing back to that little point in the question to say it's a 3-day trip. 3-day trip. Okay. So what I'm going to start then is it wants, as it states there, it wants my standing, running and overall costs for this journey. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in here standing costs. Because I always start with my standing costs. That's the first thing I always do. And usually the first cost that I put in this instance is depreciation. The reason for that being because it's the slightly longer one to work out. So I'll put in here depreciation. Now, the weirdness about this particular question, as opposed to a lot of other costing questions, is that you've actually got 2 vehicles to cost on this job. Now, the amount of people that I've seen, and obviously it's been 10 years almost since this paper was released, and I've been doing this for nearly as long. The amount of people I've seen that will only cost one of them. They'll just do the tractor unit, or they'll just do the trailer, or they'll do one for some of it and forget some of it for the other. You've got to cost both all the way through. That's what it says. The job is using the 3-axle tractor unit and a 3-axle semi-trailer. And one of the problems we've had with candidates doing this question previously is they didn't know what a tractor unit was or a semi-trailer. Because there's lots of people that come to this from different walks of life and they don't know the terminology used for the vehicles. You know, if you say to somebody, we take a big massive truck to Milan, they'll know what you mean. But when we say tractor unit and trailer, so what we mean by that, just to make it clear, it's an articulated combination. The tractor unit is the unit at the front that pulls the trailer that is attached to it. So that's why we're going to cost both of these. So depreciation. First of all, I'm going to do the tractor unit because that's the first one. So the way I work out my depreciation is I need to take, first of all, the purchase price, which in this case is 950,000. However, this tells me it includes the tyres. So
95,000, Adam.
What was that, sorry? Oh, yeah. Oh, of course it was. That's a very expensive.
That's a very expensive unit.
So it says it includes the tyres. So the first thing I've got to do is I've got to take away the tyre cost. Again, that's one of the first things that people will slip up on because it says take off the tyres. So the tyres here, how many have I got? I've got 10 tyres and they all cost £200 each. So 10 times 200, whoops, expensive tyres as well, 2,000. So minus 2,000. That's not doing anything. Minus 2,000. Because that's the tyre price. So that will give me a total of 93,000. That's the value without the tyres on. But I've got to work this out now to a daily cost. Okay. So the next thing I need to do is I need to take away its residual value. So its residual value here, it tells me it's 28,800. So I'm going to go to this, I'm going to minus 28,800. That's going to give me, when I do it on the calculator, 93,000 minus 28,800, 64,200. 64,200. Now that is the amount of money that my vehicle loses over the time that I own it. So therefore, that's the cost that I've got to try and recoup in any job that I do. But again, I need to find out that at a daily cost. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide that first of all by 5, because that's how many years I own the vehicle. So divide that first of all by 5, because what that will do is it will give me a yearly cost. It'll tell me, oh no, it will tell me exactly how much I lose on it per year now. Divided by 5, 12,840. 12,840. That's how much I lose on it per year. So to now work that out, how much I lose per day, I need to now divide that by the utilization, which is 250. So divided by 250 equals, by 250, £51.36 a day. 51.36. Now, I need to know, once I've got that as a daily cost, that's my lowest denomination now for that particular cost. That's what I need to get it down to. I need to now times that by 3 because it's a 3-day trip. And when I do that, times by, what's happened there? £51.36 times by 3 equals £154.08. So here, I'm going to write in my total of £154.08. Now, what I should have done over here is I should have typed tractor, because that is the cost for my tractor units. And what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to do the same for the tractor and the trailer. So I'm going to write over here trailer. That's going to be my next line for depreciation. And then I'm going to do the same again. Purchase price of the semi-trailer, 27,000. Minus its tyre price. 6 tyres at £350 each. 6 times 350, 2,100. So 27,000 minus 2,100. 27,000 minus 2,100. 24,900. That's how much it's worth, 24,900. That's how much the vehicle is worth without the tyres on. Take away its residual value, what it's worth after its lifespan, minus 5,300 in this case. 24,900, oops, not that. 24,900 minus 5,300, 19,600. That's how much value it loses over its lifespan. Now, this is the next tricky point they throw in there, because the top line with your tractor unit, you've divided it by the 5-year lifespan that you've had the vehicle. Most people, and I say most because it is most rather than some, would now divide that figure by 5 also. But if you look carefully at the question, this one tells you that you have the trailer for 10 years, right? So now you've got to be careful to make sure that you divide this figure by 10 to give you your yearly cost. So that means that every year your trailer costs you, where are we, divided by 10, 1,960. 1,960. Then I can divide it by the days that I utilised over, which is 250, divided by 250. £7.84 equals £7.84. And I just need to times that now back up by the amount of days that the job is done over. So £7.84 times by 3 gives me £23.52. Whoa, where's that going? £23. What did I say? 23.52. That was it. 23.52. That's my depreciation done. Right, so I can now highlight that to say I've done it. Residual value, yeah, I did all that. Did that, yeah, and I did all that. So that, you know, that took me a little bit of a time, but that's my first standing cost done, depreciation. The next standing cost that we've got in here is insurance. So insurance, I'm going to title it insurance. And again, I'm going to write down here tractor. And I'm going to write in here, oh no, I'm going to do the tractor one first so I know I've got enough space. So the way I'm going to work out my insurance in this case is I'm going to take my, well, you can do it 2 ways if you want. You can take 1,600, add it to £990, which gives you your overall insurance, which is what I'm going to do in this case. Depreciation, I couldn't do that. I had to work the 2 out separately. But in this case, what I'll do is I'll lump them together. So I'll get rid of that. And I'll lump the two together. Insurance will work out as 1,600 plus 990 equals 1,600 plus 2,590. 259. So £2,590 I spend on insurance per year, but the reason I can now lump those together is because they're both utilised over 250 days. So all I've got to do is divide that figure now by 250. So divide that by 250 equals £10.36. £10. Oops, that's wrong. What am I doing? Go back to this. That equals £10.36. And what I almost forgot to do then was, as I've now got a daily charge or daily cost, I need to times that by 3. So £10.36 times by 3 equals £31.08. 31.8. There we go. So that's insurance done. So I'm going to go over to my case study paper. I'm going to highlight that, and I'm going to highlight that. The next thing it tells me is... So if, go on, sorry, Chris.
If you did answer that question in 2 parts, you wouldn't get knocked down for it, would you, if you just did your matrix way?
Not on this particular question, you wouldn't know. No, you're absolutely fine. Next one I've got is VED. So I will I'll put my heading over here as VED. This one's even easier because there's no tax to be paid on your semi-trailer. Your tax is only paid on the motorised unit, which is your tractor unit. So you've got 1,500. 1,500. That's your VED per year. And all I've got to do is divide that by its utilisation, which is 250. So 1,500 divided by 250 gives me a daily cost of £6 per day. Then I've got to times that by 3, which will give me an overall cost over here for VED of £18 for VED. So I can highlight that on my case study. The other one I've got here is driver's wages. The wages will go into standing costs as well. So again, I'll write it in, driver's wages. It tells me here that the drivers get paid £190 per day. Yeah, it says per day. You've got to be clear on that as well. So per day, £190. So 190. The job is 3 days. So 190 times by 3. 190 times by 3 equals 570. 570. Now, again, it doesn't tell you anymore in this little bit. So if you are following through this table, working out all your costs, it's quite easy to go wrong at this point because you think, well, that's £570. When actually it tells you in the job, sorry, in the case study, the journey is carried out by a 2-man crew. So therefore, you've got to be careful that you pay 2 drivers. So in that case, it's done over 3 days, but there are 2 drivers. So 570 times by 2 is 1,140. Again, I'm trying to point out the easy errors. £1,140. So there's the driver's wages done as well. Oh, we've also got in here some admin costs. Admin costs are a standing cost. Doesn't matter how far you travel, those admin costs will always exist and be exactly the same. And it tells us the admin costs for the tractor unit are £12,000. So again, admin 12,000 divided by, because you're trying to find out what it's worth, well, what it costs you every day in admin. So you're going to divide that by 250 to give you a figure of 12 divided by 250, 48. So that's £48 a day in just admin it costs you. And I need to times that by 3 also because it's a 3-day trip, which gives me a total of £144. £144. Excellent. Okay, so I can highlight that one as well. And as long as I'm looking down all the highlighted areas, I can say I've done that one, I've done that one, I've done that one, I've done that one. Insurance I've done, the purchase price I've done, vehicle utilisation can stay for a minute. Yeah, so I've done all of my standing costs. Fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to total. Hello?
Hello, sorry. Are you okay not putting the denominations in those workings out just on your totals?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're fine. As long as your totals are expressed in a monetary value and the right monetary value, then you can do whatever you like in your calculations as far as I'm concerned.
All right, brilliant. So
total standing costs then. And again, I'm going to have to do my calculations. So I'm going to head over here. I've got 154 and 8 plus 2352 plus 3108 plus 18 plus 1,140 equals, no, sorry, plus 144 plus 144 equals. So my total standing costs will total to 1,140 plus 18 plus 3108 plus 2352 plus 15408. One, jot it in there. 1,510,510 pound and 68 pence. That's my total standing costs for the round trip, there and back. Okay, well, I've got my standing costs, so I'm going to need to have some running costs. Running costs. There we go. Title it up again. The first running cost it has in here is those tyres. The tyres that we said before come as a running cost rather than a standing cost as part of the vehicle. Now, in this case, when I look across my my chart here, again, I'm going to have to work these two out differently because the tractor unit has 10 tyres at £200 each and they do 40,000 kilometres. The semi-trailer has 6 tyres at £350 each and they do 60,000 kilometres. So I can't really lump them together, so I'm going to do them separately. So I'm going to say tyres and I'm going to do tractor tyres first. So the way I work out my tyres is I work out my total cost of my tyres, which is 10 times 200. Because there's 10 tyres and they all cost £200. That was £2,000 for my total tyre equipment. Now, what I need to do with that is I need to find out a pence per kilometre. So pence per kilometre. And the way I do that is I will divide the total cost of my tyres by the lifespan. So 2,000 divided by 40,000. 2,000 divided by 40,000. 0.05. 0.05. So my tyres cost me 5 pence per kilometre. 5 pence per kilometre. So I need to work out what that cost me for the whole trip. But I don't know how many kilometres it is yet. So that's the next thing I have to work out. So going back through my case study, I know it gave me some distances here. It said here, Swindon to Dover is 245. So I'll tell you what, I'll jot it down on here. So it's 245 kilometers. Then it said Calais to Milan. So I'll get on the ferry at Dover, get off at Calais. Then I've got to drive from Calais to Milan, which is 1155 plus 1155 kilometers. So it's a total of, well, I'll do it on the calculator, plus 1155. 1,400 kilometers. Is that right?
Outbound.
Outbound, yeah. This question tells me it wants
Round trip.
the round trip. Yeah, 3-day round trip. So therefore, once I've got those, I need to then times that by 2. So let's do that again. 245 plus 1155 was 1,400 times 2. 2,800 kilometers. That is the round trip, 2,800 kilometers. Right, so once we've got that and we know that, now we can work out our running costs for our tractor units tyres. Because now we've got to times 5 pence by 2,800. So 2,800 times 0.05 gives me a tyre cost of £140. £140. So going back down to my costing table, I can say, right, well, I've done that, but I need to do the trailer. Do the same. 6 tyres this time, times by £350 each. 6 times 350. Again, the very common errors are to, yes, you can see it's got 6 tyres, but a lot of people will times it by 200, or they'll do 10 times by 350. You've got to be focused on what you're doing. So 6 times 350. 6 times 350 gives me a total tyre price of 2,100. 2,100. And I'll divide that by their lifespan, which again is different to the tractor unit. It's now 60,000 kilometres. Divided by 60,000, which gives me, divided by 60,000, 0.035. So 0.035. So that is 3.5 pence per kilometre. Same again, they're doing the same amount of kilometres for the whole journey, so I'll times it by 2,800. Giving me a tyre cost for the trailer of £98. Brill, done the tyres, fantastic. Next thing it gives me for a running cost is fuel. Hopefully I'm not going to run out of space on this page. Fuel. Now here's the other tricky bit. It gives me the fuel in euros rather than in pounds. So because everything else is in pounds, I'm going to try and work out my fuel price in pounds rather than euros. And it tells me my exchange rate is £1 to €1.20. So what I'm going to do with this to work out my fuel in this case is I'm going to convert, first of all, that 150 into pounds, just to make it easy to start with. So I'm going to take my euro figure, which is 150, and I'm going to divide by 120, because that is the exchange rate. So 150 divided by 120 will equal, and I'll put my pound figure here because I want to show that it's in pounds, that now a litre of fuel costs me £1.25 rather than it being €1.50. And that makes it easy now to work out the rest of it. Because once I've got my cost of my fuel, I need to divide that by its, what's the word? Its usage, I guess. So it tells me kilometers per litre of fuel. That's what I'm looking for there. It does 2.5 Ks to the litre. So I take £1.25 divided by 2.5, which gives me 1.25 divided by 2.5, 0.5. That's 50 pence per kilometre. Oops, come on. So my fuel costs me 50 pence per kilometre. So what I need to do with that fuel cost is times it up by the amount of kilometres in my journey, which I said was 2800. So 0.50 times 2800, £1,400. 1,400 pounds. Right, so I've done my fuel, fantastic. I've done that bit. No need to work anything out for the trailer because you obviously don't put any fuel in the trailer. So the only other thing to work out here is the maintenance, because that's listed in there as well. So maintenance. And I think I mentioned during the week that they generally always give you one. They give you at least one. And this is the one they've given us in this case. They've told us it's 8.5 pence per kilometre. Now, it's a given, but you've got to be careful about how you do it. Because look, that's 8.5 pence per kilometre. That's 8.5 pence. So what you need to do is you need to write it in the correct decimal format. So 0.085. That is 8.5 pence. Times that by the kilometres, 2,800, equals 0.085 times 2800, £238. Now, if I were to do the maintenance and I looked at that and I just did 8.5 times by 2,800, that comes out at 23,800. Now that would be a very, very high maintenance cost. And that's why expressing that figure there, that 8.5 ppk as a decimal, like you've done with all the others, is really important. And that's why they've expressed it in the manner they have, to test you into making sure that you can put that on the page correctly. Maintenance, done. So I've got all of my standing costs done. So I'm going to do my total.
Adam.
Yes, mate.
Trailer.
Go on, Simon, sorry.
Got maintenance on the trailer.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Oh, see. On the ball, aren't they?
I was going to ask, could you add the two together?
No. Well, yes, you can. In this case, you can do that as well. So
yeah,
actually, yeah, you're absolutely right. Simon's teaching the next one.
Sorry.
No. Don't blame her. 8.5 and 3.5. So in this case, we'll add the two together. So we'll have 8, 9, 10, 11, and 2.5s equal 1. So that's 12. So that makes it easier, I guess, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So we'll go with 12. 12 pence per kilometre. But again, it's got to be 0.12. Times it by 2800 equals, not that, get rid of that. So 0.12 times by 2800, 336. There we go. That's better as well because it saves on space. So I've done that one. If I'd have looked at my highlighting then, I would have noticed that I'd missed a cost out.
That's why you did it, yeah.
That's why I did it, absolutely. Yeah. So I've now got I've got to put in my total running costs. Total running costs. So in this case, I have, what did I have for my running costs? 140 plus 98 plus 1,400 plus 336 and equals, let's get them all together. So 140 plus 98 plus 140 plus 336, 1974. 1974 exactly. Okay, so the only other thing I've got in this, and I always put in at the bottom other costs. The only other cost we've got in this case is right there, which is our ferry. And it tells us that ferry is £385. And it tells us that it's the return trip as well. So we've only got to do it once. So in this case, we'll put in ferry at 350. So the total there will be £350. So the only thing left to do then, by the look of it, and I would have another quick look through just to make sure you haven't missed anything out, but I'm quite comfortable and happy that I've done everything there. I'm now going to do a total overall. Overall total. So I'm going to take my standing costs of 1510 and 68 pence. 68 pence, come on, there we go. And I'm going to add my total running costs of 1974. I'm going to add my ferry cost of 350. And it's going to give me a total answer, which I'll jot there. 1510.68 plus 1974 plus 350 gives me a figure of £3,834.68. There we go. Now that question is worth 12 marks. That's a 12-mark question in there, which is a significant portion of the exam and was a significant portion of this particular exam. Has anybody got any questions about that? No?
No. I did have a, funny enough, I had a go at this last night, and I'm quite pleased with the results I've come out with, actually. So I'm glad you did this one. Good. The only mistake I did make was I literally, where were we? On the insurance, I put it down as £31.80, so I was out by, yeah, just a little bit.
Where were you out, sorry?
Sorry, I was on the insurance up there. I just made a mistake on there. Literally, I should have put 8p instead of 80p when we were adding the insurance.
I've actually just realised I made a mistake myself. The ferry is 385, not 350. 385.
385, yeah, return. Yeah,
that was it. 385, silly mate. 385. Let me just change all my figures so that they're correct. 385. Let's do that again. 1510.68 plus 1974 plus 385, 3869. That was better. 869. There we go. The reason for doing this one, I think this is quite a good one to do, because it does point out and pick out the little bits and pieces that will trip you up. Because I'm hoping by the point where you take your exams, you will know how to do this. You'll know how to calculate things. You'll know what the equations are for all of them without having to use too much of a cheat sheet, if you like. If you do, that's fine, as long as it works.
Yeah.
But the things that you'll make errors on are those little bits and pieces in there. In this particular one, as I mentioned, it's to do with having two vehicles or two parts of the vehicle that you need to cost. That's where the first tricky bit comes into it. And in having two parts of these vehicles, it's the little differences that might trip you up. Like I said, that residual value. In regards to the tractor unit, you keep your tractor unit for 5 years, but you keep your trailer for 10 years. So they trip you up a little bit on that area there. The tyres on the tractor unit, you have 10. On the trailer, you have 6. On the tractor unit, they cost you £200. On the trailer, they cost you £350. I tripped myself up on the maintenance there by not adding the two together. I was going to do them separately, but that would have just wasted my own time, to be honest. But with that one, you can add them together. So there's a few little bits. The conversion rate on the fuel, that's another bit just to make you think that little bit more. You know, it's not going to be necessarily, well, I don't know, it might be straightforward. They are going to put little bits and pieces in there to trip you up or to make you think that little bit more. So you've got to be really careful when you do it. But as I mentioned at the very start, I mean, look, let's take my example. If I had have put my ferry at 350, I'd have messed that bit up, wouldn't I? So I wouldn't have got a mark for that, which meant my overall total wouldn't have been right either. But the rest of it was right. I'm quite happy that the rest of it was going to be right. Even if I had done my maintenance in 2 parts, I would have still ended up with the right figure. And yeah, I'd have got all that. And I'd have probably just missed out on a couple of marks. And that would have probably given me 10 marks out of that question.
Yeah.
Great. There's a third of my pass done.
Yeah.
The key, though, is just making sure you get it on the page like that. So it's nice and clear. You've got your titles, your calculations, your totals, so that the examiner can see it all. So as long as you've got it all like that, your figures are all decent. You know, there's no reason why you're not going to pick up decent marks on these costing questions. And it's just making sure you do it fast enough. I mean, for a third of a pass, that took us about 40 minutes, 45 minutes at most, really. That's not too far out of doing a costing question in your exam. If you're spending 40 minutes on it, 45 minutes on it, maybe, but as long as you've done it well, it's time well spent in that exam. But the faster you can do it, the better it becomes. So the more of these you do, the easier it becomes for you and the faster you'll get. Right then, guys, thank you very much.
Brilliant.
We've done 3 evening sessions for this week, but I'll be back on next week in the evenings if anybody cares to join me. Thank you very much. I'll see you on the next one.
Cheers, Adam. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Very much. Have a good evening, Simon.
Thank you too, Chris. Thank you.
Ciao, mate.